Hi, my name is Sandra Hollibow, and I am an artist. I welcome you to my studio. This is where I work, and I'll even show you a glimpse of how I work. I'm here to show you some of the pieces that will be exhibited at the Chicago Cultural Center to celebrate the Illinois Bicentennial. Not all these pieces may be included in the final selection, but many of these will grace the walls of the gallery at the Cultural Center. This is a piece that started out with intention, and I don't know if any artist ever creates a piece that is exactly what they have in their mind when they set out to do it. I'd like to meet them and see the piece they've created, because there are always changes along the way and decisions that are made. But this was a piece that evolved with the idea that nature is the beginning of all things. And Illinois, as many states, are started with the agrarian culture. Many towns began with churches or religious institutions, schools, and of course manufacturing or some kind of industry. And the architecture reflects that. I'm always interested in how communities begin. What is it that keeps them together, that forms them, and that makes them endure? This is a piece, as I said, that shows you the beginnings or the influences of Illinois architecture and where it might lead. And this is the hint of it up there with the high rise, and of course the auditorium building that is Louis Sullivan's, and such a beautiful, beautiful classic structure which it has become, and it's noteworthy in Chicago architecture. But this piece deals with the beginning, the historical aspects. If you look closely, you will see that I used repeatedly this wonderful railing, and that is from the Dowling House in Galena, Illinois, and it has the French-Dutch colonial influence, and you'll see more of this as I go along. Embedded in this piece are very architecture and examples of various places around the state and from various periods. There was a Mormon enclave in 1842 that was a beacon for travelers on the Mississippi, and it was built around Joseph Smith, who founded the congregation, and was called a prophet and a seer. He wanted this church built, and I'm going to look for that. This is the snippet of it. He wanted this church built as a congregation's labor of love, and it was. The entire congregation gave money toward it and actually did the physical labor. This is an interesting structure here, and it is again a Gothic revival. You can see the peaked roof reaching up to the sky, and this is the former Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois. This is a piece that was inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, who is an enormous force, not just in Illinois, but in Pennsylvania with the Falling Water House, and in California, and Spring Green, Wisconsin, where one of his studios was. He is an enormous force in American architecture, and not just in the 1900s, but through the ages. So many architects see him as their inspiration. I could not do justice to this great man, and I think very few artists could, but this is my attempt. It has the peaked roof, it has a pillar from the Unity Church in Oak Park, and it has his classic glass, wheat, He loved to do wheat stained glass. This particular house is the Dana House in Springfield, Illinois. It is the back of it, and it also has various other houses that he did. One on Sheridan Road, which was unusual for the time, which was about in the 1920s or 30s, but that large roof that keeps out the sun from the windows is so characteristic of Wright. The open light shafts coming in. He used nature to his advantage, and he never chose a site to build that he didn't go out and inspect and use as his inspiration. Always nature. This is a piece which I titled Clouds Over Springfield. And it really is a collage, because underneath here there are rectangles primarily of paper, and I painted over them. And then I used contrast. Yellow and purple are complementary colors, so I played with them, adding some greens and oranges. I got the idea because, as you may know, Illinois governors do not have a very good reputation for honor and honesty, and many of them have been, or still are, in prison. I think that the purple was perfect for me, because I get angry sometimes about where our taxes go and where we are really prisoners along with our governors. Julia Ohmke is a portrait artist, a very well-known portrait artist, who was chosen to have an exhibit at the Cultural Center in 2018. Actually, I believe May and through July, or through early July in particular. Julia wanted to do the bicentennial and felt that we should honor our state. We have so many good things and so many good people and such beautiful architecture in Illinois, and she honored me by choosing me to do those, while she is doing the portraits of well-known or famous people in Illinois, and maybe even people that aren't famous that you should know about. I am doing places, and I decided not to do just famous places or places that everybody knows about, like the Water Tower place, but to pay homage to places and buildings that are threatened, that may not be around very long, or scenes that we see all the time but don't really register. Maybe they're stylized, maybe I do them in a manner that is not particularly real to everybody or photographically real, but for instance, the piece on the area underneath the tracks in the loop, Wabash Avenue and Randolph. Maybe people don't see it that way, don't see that area that way, and they're not supposed to. I want them to see it a little differently. I want them to see it again as part of a community. It's not that I don't know how to do figures, it's that I don't generally use them because I prefer the place of the community rather than the people who are ever changing, who are ever moving, transient, and I don't want to see that aspect of it. These are mannequins, frozen in the windows, and this is underneath the elevated tracks on Wabash Avenue in Chicago. And this is an interpretation, as all artists do. We interpret. We're not looking for the absolute photographic facsimile. We are trying to give you our take, our interpretation, which we hope will enhance the scene, the objects, or whatever our subject is. We want you to see it our way. We want you to see it differently. We want you to see it in a way that perhaps you hadn't thought about before. And this is a dark Wabash, but the lights are in the windows and in the structure of the elevated station itself, which is up there. This is a piece that was inspired by a small neighborhood in Chicago, which is off an alley, literally. I mean, it's like an enclave that nobody knows about. And I was struck by the big church that seems to be the focal point. And it reminded me again that communities and parishes and congregations form communities. Maybe not initially, but that's the way they begin. And this, to me, the photographs I took of this area were typical of many neighborhoods in Chicago. As a kid, I moved around a lot, and I saw this. It was always turn left at the church. The church was the vital building, the most important. And this is my tribute to that. The next piece is a collage. I'm also a collage artist, but I found that in doing this project on the bicentennial of Illinois, I couldn't really use the collage as I had been because I wanted to give credence to actual places, actual buildings, actual neighborhoods. And so the collage tends to change the veracity of that building unless you're going to abstract it. And I didn't really want to abstract Illinois because I wanted the realities, the actual places to be a bond that we can translate but recognize that we're a part of, and even recognize some of those buildings. This, in keeping with that, is Michigan Avenue. Some of the buildings have been created because I needed to create buildings like this wonderful shadow. I love the shadows. But this is Michigan Avenue looking south to the bridge. And it's a piece I'm very proud of because it's all mesh. If you can touch it and see it in person, you will see that this is window screening that I have used to form these buildings. It was a real challenge. But again, I try to keep nature, a tree, in the piece. And that is a formula that I use not just haphazardly to include it, but to include nature, because nature is a very important part of our surroundings, or if not, it should be. We have to keep it in mind. We have to remember it and honor it. And I hate to see trees torn down, but that's another story. This is in Joliet, and it's the first of the series of 3 that I've been doing, that I've gotten to so far. This was a vaudeville theater originally, and it's been repurposed to movies, and now it's going back to stage shows, stage performances. I am well aware that these theaters are at risk, and they will never be built again. They're gorgeous inside. As you've ever been into some of these old theaters, you know about the balconies and the gilt and the gold, the sculpture and the ceilings, the domes, etc. And they are prizes, which unfortunately the community does not necessarily prize. I think in this piece, I indicate that kind of ethereal quality of going into nothing and disappearing. It's the only one of those that I capture that feeling in, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I want it to be remembered, and I want it to be valued. This is a theater in Geneva, Illinois, and I'm very proud of it because it has a hint of Edward Hopper, and I have been accused of being Hopper-esque, and I want you to know Edward Hopper is copying me. I couldn't resist. I did not do this on purpose. I did not create a piece reminiscent of Edward Hopper on purpose, but the theater itself lent itself to it. It's not on the main street. It's on a street over, one street over. The fact that it's now advertising a local bookstore, book sale, lets you know that the theater is maybe perhaps not actively showing first-run films, but it's so charming. It's such yesteryear that I had to do this one. Each of these theaters, by the way, have their own appeal, and that's why I choose them. This is the Paramount Theater in Joliet, Illinois, or it is my impression of the Paramount Theater in Joliet, Illinois. Now, I took many photographs of this piece, and one of the things I found in doing architectural pieces, architectural paintings, was that I get to know the building very well. That this building is a very heavy Germanic building in that it may have a tower, it's very heavy, it's bulky. The proportions are bulky. But then the architect put in Chinese details. The roof up here, the embossed panels in the tower. We were not allowed to go in, so I don't know what that rotunda looks like. But the outside of it, it was much heavier than I had thought. One of the photographs I took of the piece was this one. And you can see that there are clouds in this photograph. This is just one of several that I took, that I referred to in painting. And I decided to include the clouds. It's the only one that I probably will do with them. But this building is so stolid, it's so solid, it's so heavy that I included the clouds because the clouds are movement. And once again, they're a reminder of Mother Nature. So there you have my rendition of the Paramount Theater in Aurora, Illinois. Very obviously important at one time, and now it is also attracting people by having weddings there. So many of the theaters have suffered with the digital age. I just hope we keep them. One of the things that all three of these pieces have in common is that I use the actual letters for the logo because I felt that they were an intrinsic part of what the theater is all about. They are the distinguishing letters, the marquee, which is very important, and in this one also. I kept the letters of Rialto. These are more involved and more complex, but I feel that we should not take away the logo. It is the theater, it is the identifying signature. One of the things that as a recurrent theme in my work is the idea of community and what keeps us together as a people, what forms towns, what keeps our towns together. And as I did the theaters, I realized that entertainment is a big part of it. Laughing together is a wonderful way of solidifying a community. Transportation is another. People have to get to work, people interact with each other, and people move to places because of the transportation, having it easy to schools or close to their jobs. This is the Chicago Avenue station, and it's been there for a very long time, and I love the way the sunlight hit certain aspects, certain parts, certain pieces of the station. And it's an old station. They'll probably redo it. They'll put mosaics all over, you'll see, and our tax dollars will be used to refurbish a beautiful station when this old one serves us very well. The next piece is a piece that may in fact be a signature piece, and by that I mean it may be a piece that has a great deal of influence on my work and is a precursor to another series. I'm not done with the theaters yet, but this is a farmhouse that was just south of Galena, and I photographed it twice, coming and going from an automobile. And I did not copy the photograph. I took away a lot of the shrubbery so that the house could be seen more clearly. One of the things that farmers do is to put trees around their houses for shade and for cooling their homes too, to keep the blistering sun from hitting it. And I liked the fact that this farmhouse stands there proudly in the fields. It's near a river town so that the fields are not flat. I showed the undulation of the ground. But the house looks empty, and I meant for it to look empty because we don't know if this family farm will be sold for a housing complex. So many of them are. The land is more valuable for living on it with homes than it is to work the fields. And farmers are hurting, and they can't stay afloat. They're looking to other pastures, literally, to earn a living. And this house shows the empty house, but it's large, so you know that several generations of farm people have lived in this house and then gone to work. Next to it is probably the chicken coop. But the sky is what is vital and vibrant, and that's because no matter what they build, no matter what they grow, plant, sow, they are victims, or they flourish from nature. Nature calls the shot for the farmer. This is a piece that is a collage. It's one of the few, along with Michigan Avenue, that is almost pure collage. In that much of the parts of it were done with a material, a stuff that is glued on. The name of the piece is Urban Development, and it's my interpretation of how cities evolve. On the bottom is the manufacturing, on the top are the offices, and in the middle is again transportation. But it's got a little different palette. It's sort of a pale green and rust and dark heaviness on the bottom. Maybe that's indicating that that's the foundation for this. But it's one of the larger pieces in the exhibit, and I think even though it's literal, it tells the development of cities. It's not particularly meant to be a particular city. I want my cities to be universal. My idea is to be more than just a town, a city, a place. I want them to evoke memories that people have of their own lives and their own experience. And you can't do that if you're doing such specific buildings and places. So if they seem a little generalized, it's on purpose. I have spent my life in Chicago. I'm a city girl, and most of my work has to do with city, urbanization. I'm an observer of it. However, Illinois is large. I'm trying to reach beyond what I know. I think we should all stretch by going into areas that are different than what we're accustomed to. And as a result of this project, I have been traveling to Joliet, I have been to Aurora, I have been to Galena, which I had no idea Galena was named after a mineral. It's a charming town, and there's still the big hills that have the churches and the homes that are off from the city center, the main street. But the next place I went to was Geneva. Geneva, Illinois. I used to travel there when I was much younger, and there was a great restaurant on the Fox River. And that restaurant is gone, unfortunately, and what's replaced it again is more tourists looking for different things. They're looking for clothing. The fine restaurant that I recall is no longer there, but the people are there, and there are wonderful candy shops. Go there only on when you're not on a diet. To me, this project has afforded me an excuse to get out of town, literally. And I do it on weekends. I have a friend who drives so that I can open the window and photograph. And our next stop is probably going to be St. Charles. I go word of mouth. People lead me to their town theaters. One of the reasons that I went to Joliet was that a friend of mine said, "Oh, there's a gorgeous theater there." Well, I think the theater is very attractive, but what he meant was that it has a magnificent interior, and unfortunately, we couldn't get in. We usually take our trips on Sundays when we hope that the traffic will be light. I'm going to have to get downstate. I really want to get to the farmland. I just am so struck by farmhouses and crops, and this should be a very, very lush season because we've had some big, big rains and floods even. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and seeing what nature has done. Now, because I have somewhat abstracted this part of the painting, I'm going to have to make some decisions about how I want that farmhouse to be. Do I want it realistic, or do I want to sort of abstract it like the crop is? I just want to put my lightest colors in, and this is the lightest color, which is the farmhouse, which is what intrigues me about this photograph and why I'm doing this piece. See that there's a deep shadow right here, which caused me to lower this part of the roof so that it was the same height as this. I don't want that. I will make that part of the house taller if I have to, but I don't want them to be the same size. When I show you a piece like this is not the way I usually start out, but as I said, I needed a relief from doing the actual theaters and how they look and how people expect them to look, because they come from Joliet or they come from Aurora and they want to see what my interpretation is of their theater. This is something that from the beginning is experimental, and I don't have to have it exactly right. I hope that you've enjoyed getting a glimpse of some of the pieces that will be included in the Bicentennial Celebration exhibit. It is a slice of what Illinois means to me currently, and hopefully what it will have some meaning for you also. Pieces have not yet been chosen, so some of these you may not see. I've already had an offer for one work which I may sell, and you won't see it in the show. So come to the exhibit at the Chicago Cultural Center on Michigan Avenue between Randolph and Washington, and you will see the choices that we have made to include. Those will be made not just visually on the pieces that we like, but also those that have some significance historically or personally even. I think that it's been very exciting to work on this theme because it kept me focused. Certainly, for over a year now, I've had to think about what will contribute, what will enlarge our feelings for our state, our information about our state, and how can this best be shown. I hope to see you there. I'm looking forward to it.